All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Congressman, we're heading into the thick of the election season here, and everybody trying to make a distinction between what the Democrats offer and what the Republicans offer. You say there is a distinct chasm, essentially, of a difference between Democrats and Republicans on Israel. So what's the choice for voters then?
Well, let's just look at the record. This isn't even theoretical. President Trump recognized Golan. He actually lived up to decades of promises to move the embassy. There was no issue, not even a question in terms of military support, but most importantly, he held Iran to account. So what I would love to see the media ask of Kamala Harris, if she would ever bother to talk to them and talk to the American people, what cost has Iran paid? What have they paid for launching literally hundreds of missiles and drones at Israel? What cost have they paid for killing Americans yet again in Iraq, as they've done for years? What cost have they paid for taking Americans hostage? Zero. In fact, they've been rewarded. Why? Because Harris and the people around her have a concessions-based approach. How can we appease? I think she wakes up every day. Can we make another appeasement? Can we make another appeasement? They're like the kids on the schoolyard that try to figure out, can I just give the bully more lunch money and he'll leave us alone? Well, Iran, the bully, when they smell weakness, they're going to be on the march. They are on the march with their stated goal of destroying Israel. So the contrast couldn't be more clear. Do we want war and inflation and our greatest ally being threatened to wiped off the map? Or do we want to go back to strength, deterrence, opportunity, and holding our enemies to account?
One of the key points of tension now is this claim that the Biden administration is withholding or slowing down the delivery of weapons to Israel, essentially keeping it from defending itself in some aspects. You're on some key committees who deal with this particular issue. What is your vantage point right now? Because the Biden administration denies that's happened.
Well, they admitted it in one case, but they said it was only for large diameter bombs, and why do you need those if you're doing precision strikes in Gaza? Well, let me tell you why they need those. They need those in the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon. They need those when you have Iran launching literally hundreds of drones, cruise missiles, and all types of other ordnance directly at Israel. So this is a broader fight outside of just the alleyways of Gaza, but yet this administration is obsessed with this kind of Pollyannish view that if you get a ceasefire in Gaza, you'll have peace break out everywhere else. That's exactly the wrong approach. If you want peace in Gaza, if you want peace in northern Israel, if you want peace in the Red Sea, hold Iran to the count, start raising costs for them, make it so painful for the Ayatollahs that they back off. So their strategic approach is completely wrong. And to think that you can pressure and constrain Israel into a better future for the Middle East is literally an ass-backwards approach. And it's dangerous. And we've seen, more and more conflict because of how bad their policy is.
I want to ask you, Republicans obviously feel that the issues of Israel and anti-Semitism are a winning political issue. I mean, they're hammering it in certain circles. There's also always that danger of making Israel a political football. Mm-hmm. How do Republicans toe that line between hammering their message, saying that we are on the right side of this, and yet avoiding to the extent possible making it such a partisan issue that it becomes a hot potato after the election is over?
Yeah, but look, at the end of the day, this is kind of common sense, and it's fundamental. It's about our shared values. The Democrats talk a lot about siding with democracy and protecting democracy. What's the only democracy in the Middle East is Israel. They talk a lot about kind of social justice. Well, there's 6 million Israelis, there's 3 million Arabs, it's a thriving democracy, right? There's you have the makings of opportunity to rise out of the middle class, capitalism, all of the things that we hold dear. Are you not going to side with that? Are you really going to call that an apartheid state? So I think the common sense kind of middle of America, this isn't really necessarily a Republican or Democrat issue. This is about siding with an ally in their time of war and defeating terrorism and defeating an organization, Hamas, backed by Iran, that has no desire for peace.
You mentioned in your speech today the issue of Rob Malley, which has kind of fallen off the table. It's kind of drifted off the pages of the newspapers lately. Has there been any update from the Biden administration as to what's going on with that situation?
Continued stonewalling, continued crickets. Again, I find it pretty incredible that we're seeing Russian or foreign agents, people who didn't represent themselves as representing Russia in this huge press conference over the last couple of days, but yet nothing when it comes to people who had infiltrated, the Iranians had infiltrated through them, our government at the highest levels. I mean, this was both Biden and Obama's chief negotiator for the Iran deal is literally checking in with the Iranian foreign ministry, his lieutenants over in the Pentagon and in other agencies, actively communicating with the Iranians while holding a top secret security clearance. This should be a massive scandal. And by the way, where are the consequences? So let me put it to you this way. If Donald Trump's chief negotiator with Russia was checking in with the Kremlin before entering negotiations, do you think the media would have covered it? They would be blowing it up left, right, and center and demanding answers. But we haven't heard, to your point, we haven't seen it covered at all. It didn't fall off the headlines. I don't think it was ever on it.
To that point, you mentioned the Russia indictment that came down, and part of what that indictment said is that the Russians were trying to divide the American Jewish community through some of this content that they were filtering through this American company. What do you know about this particular case, and do you feel that that operation was successful at all, knowing what you know?
Well, I haven't been briefed on the particulars of the case, but again, I would point to if the goal of the administration was to stop entities that are trying to divide the country and therefore influence not only our elections, but negatively influence American society, where are the indictments for those who are funding the protests on college campuses, these pro-Hamas, anti-Semitic, incredibly divisive protests, intimidation, attacks that have been going on that, on the one hand, they know Iran's behind it. No indictments, no press conference, no consequences for Iran that we've seen, no changes in policy. I mean, we have an adversary that is literally actively trying to assassinate a leading political candidate and foreign president. Not even a strongly worded condemnation coming out of Biden or Harris or anyone, Garland, Mayorkas, anyone in the administration. So what signal does that send to Iran? That they can get away with it, that they can keep trying? I can't think of a greater, I guess, way to influence and interfere with an election than killing a candidate, which is exactly what they're trying to do.
Congressman Mike Waltz, thanks so much for your insight as always.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right.